Welcome, everybody. And this is Coach Les and Less is More Coaching podcast and video cast. And today I want to start off with, once again, sharing one of my mentors' shorter videos. And for those of you that are listening to it, you'll be able to hear it, the audio. And this is from a video, Don't Choose Your Attitude, Don't Kick the Cat. Zig Ziglar.
He was out for lunch one day and he forgot about the time. Suddenly he looked at his watch and he thought to himself, oh boy, I'm supposed to be back to the office in 10 minutes. He hopped up, ran out to the parking lot, hopped in his automobile, scratched off, burned rubber, doing about 90 miles an hour down the freeway, and the long arm of the law entered the picture and gave him a ticket. Now, you're talking about somebody who was furious. Mr. B was absolutely furious. He said, this is absolutely ridiculous. Here I am, a peaceful, taxpaying, law-abiding citizen, minding my own business. Maybe I was going a little too fast. But thought about here looking for robbers and murderers and really bad guys. Leave us peaceful, taxpaying, law-abiding citizens alone. Oh, he was really upset. When he got back to the office, it was about 45 minutes late. And he did what some people have always done when they get their hand caught in the cookie jar, so to speak. They point yonder so nobody will look at them. In a loud voice, he called for a sales manager. He said, come on in here. I want to talk to you about the Armstrong account. All I want to know is a simple yes or no. Did you make the sale or did you miss the sale? And the sales manager said, Mr. B, I hate to tell you this. I thought it was a done deal. I thought we had it signed, sealed, and delivered. But at the last moment, something happened. It came unglued. No, I did not get the sale. Now, if you think Mr. B was upset before, you should have seen him now. He just hit the ceiling. He said, this is really something. Here we had a chance to get this big account. We desperately needed that money to expand our product line. And I've been depending on you as my sales manager. You've been here 15 years and you have a chance to really make a mark. And what do? You blow it. Well, let me tell you something. Just because you've been here 15 years does not mean that you've got a lifetime contract. Now, you're going to replace that business or I'm going to replace you. You're talking about upset. Mr. B was furious. But if you think he was upset, you should have seen the sales manager. He walked out of the room, slammed the door behind him, muttering under his breath, this is really something. For 15 years, I've been running this company. If it had not been for me, we would have gone broke years and years ago. And here, just because I missed one sale, it uses a cheap, lousy trick threatening to fire me. This is not fair. Oh, he was upset. Called his secretary in. He said, you remember those 5 letters I gave you to get out this morning? Have you gotten them out? Or are you going to give me some lousy excuse for not having them out? And she said, well, no. Don't you remember? You told me that the hidden account took precedence over everything else. That's what I've been working on. If you think the sales manager was upset before, you should have seen him now. He just hit the ceiling. He said, you've been here 8 years, and you apparently think you've got lifetime security. Well, I want to tell you something. You get those letters out, and if you don't get them out, I'll get me somebody who can. Oh, he was really upset. But if you think he is upset, you should have seen that secretary. She goes storming out that room. She slams the door behind her. She said, this is ridiculous. 8 years I've been here. Just because I cannot do 2 things at once, all of a sudden he gets upset with me, threatening to fire me. And I'm the only one who knows what's going on around here. Hadn't been for me, this company would have gone under years and years ago. And as far as him firing me, as much as I know about him, who does He think he's kidding. Oh, she was upset. She went out to the switchboard operator's desk. She said, I got 5 letters. I want you to get them out. Now, I know ordinarily this is not your job, but you don't do anything anyhow but sit around out here, occasionally answer the telephone. I want these letters out, and I want them out today. And if you can't get them out today, let me know. I'll get somebody who can. Oh, she was upset. But if you think she was upset, you should have seen the switchboard operator. She about hit the ceiling. This is ridiculous. I am the only one around here who does anything, who understands what's going on. They don't do anything tonight but gossip, drink coffee, every once in a while, do a little work. The minute they get behind, they come out here, they put it on my desk, and they say, now, if you don't get it done, we're going to fire you. And I'm the only one that understands the operation. Hadn't been for me, this company would have gone under years and years ago. Oh, she was upset, but she got the workout. She got home, walked in the front door, slammed it behind her. First thing you saw was her 12-year-old son laying there on the floor watching television. Second thing she saw was a great big rip right across his trouser leg. She said, son, how many times have I told you, when you come home from school, put your play clothes on. Mother has a hard enough time as it is supporting you and paying your expenses and getting you through school. I've told you to do it before, and because you have disobeyed me, you're going to go upstairs. Right now, there's going to be no dinner for you this evening, and there's going to be no television for the next 3 weeks. Oh, she was really upset. But if you think she was upset, you should have seen that 12-year-old boy. He hopped up, running out of his room, muttering under his breath. It was an accident. Could have happened to anybody. I was doing something for my own mother. She doesn't even give me a chance to explain. Oh, he was really upset. And about that time, his tomcat walked right in front of him, which was a mistake. The boy reaches down, he gives the tomcat a big old booth, and he said, you get out of here. You're probably up to some no good yourself. Now, let me ask you a question. Would it have been so much better if Mr. B had just gone directly from his lunch to the switchboard operator's house and kicked that cat himself? He left all of those other people out of the deal. Now, here's the question I've got for you. Whose cat have you been kicking recently? Here's another question. Have you been letting anybody else kick your cat? Were you ever in a traffic situation? There's a mile of cars in front of you and a mile of cars behind you, and some idiot right behind you sits on his horn. Do you turn around and say, can't you see we got all those cars up front? What's the matter with you? Do you understand that it really has nothing to do with you? Somebody has been kicking his cat earlier. Have you ever been in a restaurant? All you want's a cup of coffee, and you sit there, and you sit there, and you sit there, and finally a waiter or waitress comes by, and you timidly hold up your hand and say, could I have a cup of coffee, please? And they proceed to take your head off. Can't you see I'm busy? I'll get to you when I have a time to do so. It seems that everybody thinks all I got to do is wait on them. Do you get upset and say, well, you don't have to bite my head off about it, do you? Or can you understand? It's got nothing to do with you. Somebody had been kicking that waiter or waitress's cat long before you got there. Have you ever had a magnificent day? You get home an hour and a half late. You walk in the front door whistling and singing and call out for your mate, hi, hon, how you doing? And your mate screams back at you, how come you're so late? If you'd been putting up with what I've been putting up during this day, you wouldn't be so enthusiastic and excited. Now tell me where you've been. Can you understand it's got nothing to do with you? Somebody's been kicking your mate's cat all day long. Folks, we just live in a negative cat-kicking world.
And there you are. I thought that would be a great way to start today's conversation. Thank you for being here. Whose cat are you kicking? And I'm so excited to start us off today with this because I think this is so typical of life. And I saw this video the other day And all I could think of was December 2002. I went through this personal training and development program. And going through the program, it started on Friday. I was there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they have you take Monday off, and then you come back Tuesday night to complete the program. And I remember on Monday afternoon picking up the phone and calling a friend of mine that I usually call in rush hour, during rush hour traffic. And her name was Carol. And I'm chatting away, and I said, "Hey, Carol, how are you? How are things going?" And to a few minutes, probably about, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes into the conversation, she says, "Les, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm phenomenal. I'm doing great. Why do you ask?" And she says, "Are you still driving driving in rush hour? Normally at this time of day, you're driving in rush hour somewhere around the city." And I said, "Yeah, I'm in rush hour." And she goes, "What happened to you?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" She says, "Normally you're screaming and shouting and swearing at traffic, and you're blaming somebody for pulling in front of you or cutting in front of you or blah, 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 or something like that." And she said, similar kind of theme to what we've been just listened to was Zig Ziglar. And I said, "Well, no, I'm doing great. I'm actually feeling extremely peaceful." And and as soon as I said that, she goes, "Okay, what have you done with the less that I know?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And she says, I've known you for 3 years. I speak to you all the time at this time of day, and you're usually a raving lunatic almost. I have to sometimes put the phone down and let you just rage away." And she says, "Something's happened to you." I said, "Well, I think I know what you're referring to." And I myself had at that moment had been through a training and development weekend where I had gotten responsible for my anger towards other people and my frustration, taking it out and just getting mad. And what I had realized in speaking with Carol was, I now realized, you know what? I don't drive perfectly. I make mistakes all the time. And this is what I got through the weekend, the training and development weekend. And yet I so erupt. I so kick the cat, as Zig Ziglar said. And there are so many times that I would take out my vengeance and all of that anguish and anger and attitude on the poor victim in front of me. And my friend Carol was the victim sitting on the phone listening to my attitude about these drivers, who many times I noticed would wave and say, "Look, I'm really sorry." Or they would, literally look over at me and say, "Hey, can I need to get in." And I started to see more people communicating. Pardon me. And when I saw this video, I thought, this is perfect. This is so perfect for us to be able to talk about how we take our attitudes and we vent on the nearest people, and we yell, scream, and shout. And as Zig Ziglar said, it had nothing to do with you as that person asking for a cup of coffee. It had to do with everything that had piled on to the server prior to you getting there. It had to do with everything in my day to have these people driving the way they did, and me looking and finding an outlet to blame and yell and scream at the drivers. So I want to just take a moment here, and I want to thank you for those of you that are here in the audience here on Clubhouse, and want to just take a moment to touch base and check in before I start and jump into a little bit of Simon Sinek. I wanted to hear your reaction to Zig Ziglar and see if there's an area of your life where you can now see, wow, this is another place, another level that I could take my own attitude and be responsible for it and make sure that it doesn't spill over to the people around me. And so with that, I'd love to welcome Joey and Sujata and Wade to the stage. And Joey, I'm going to pass the mic over to you. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing great, Coach. Driving right now. I was thinking of some examples, and I'm sure I could probably think of a few that would be my own, but I'll share with you a situation last night with my daughter, talking to my daughter on the phone. She is working at a new restaurant that is going to be opening up pretty soon, and she's the floor manager, and she has a general manager and a kitchen manager and so on and so forth. And they've been putting in very, very long hours for multiple days in a row. It's been well over 2 weeks now, and there's really no end in sight because of the labor shortage and trying to open up the new restaurant. And she was exhausted. She said she sat in a car and she was crying, not because she's not liking the work, just, I try to share with her, tears are natural. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong. It doesn't mean that you're overly sad. It's just a reaction. It's an emotion. It's a reaction to what we're feeling. But she had mentioned that she, had to go to her GM, who gets along with her great. It's a good working relationship. And she said he had been short with her, and I said, and I said to her, I said, Peyton, he's exhausted like you. He's working out of emotions, and he has bosses over him. It's a corporate operation who are being demanding on him. So yeah, just commenting real quick on how the trickle down effect, or as Zig called it, kicking the cat. Especially when we're working out of a place where we're exhausted, we're tired, our emotions are high, and the most simplest thing could set us off. And she said she had a conversation with her boyfriend that went kind of sideways, and it didn't go off that well. And I shared with her, I said, it's because you're under a lot of stress right now, and that's just what's going on, and that kicking the cat. So yeah, that's my example of for me and my family's everyday life on what they're experiencing, and totally relatable to what Zig Ziglar shared, what you shared actually.
Awesome, Joey. Thank you very much. Appreciate that share. Good afternoon, Sujata. How are you?
At 4:23 a.m.
Woo! The sun isn't even a twinkle on the horizon yet.
No.
Did you want to chime in with this and share an example?
Not now. Maybe after a little while.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. And with that, I pass it to Wade. Wade, how are you, sir?
Pretty good this afternoon. I'm sitting here enjoying the sunshine while Letitia's in the store getting us something to drink. We just left. She has an upcoming ankle surgery for the end of next month, the 20th. And it's interesting. You were talking about the kick the cat story, and it's been just a couple weeks ago I heard that story and listened to it. And my best example is I used to be a professional truck driver, So oftentimes, sometimes the shipper might get short with you, or the receiver would be in a bad mood, and it was very easy for me to take that out on the road and use that attitude in the way I drove. And I really wish that I know what I know now, because that kick in the cat, everybody I interacted with on the road or anywhere, at the fuel desk, at the truck stop, got that attitude for me. And I just, because that was the basis of the story, the person at the top takes that harsh attitude and reacts, and the next person reacts, and until, the way I see it, until it lands on somebody that can just absorb that and then respond in a kinder, gentler manner. And I'm excited because now I can't practice that all the time, but some of the times when I feel that feeling like, oh, somebody's about to get it now, before it gets to that point where, the fuse is lit and it's heading for the powder keg, if I can catch myself and say, this is just not the way you want to handle this situation. It just is not you. You're allowing your emotions. You're allowing because you haven't slept well for a couple of days. Things haven't maybe been going well. I've had several times where, even today when Letitia came out, she was hoping to maybe the surgeon would explore a full replacement of her ankle, but that she wasn't overly excited about his prognosis. But I'm able today to listen, and for the most part, just absorb that and not have to, keep casting, keep kicking the cat. It almost reminds me of a soccer ball, because if you watch your soccer ball, it goes back and forth and back and forth, But nobody wins a goal in kicking the cat. Nobody wins a goal. Everybody loses. And I believe that's really what Zig was teaching us, because oftentimes he would be in a situation where, one of my favorite stories is his one where he's talking about him and Tom are flying, and they come into the airport, and the ticket agents had a pretty rough go of things. A lot of flights were canceled, and they were kind of hassling him, and Zig asked him how he was doing, and he reacted, and Zig told him, "Oh, in comparison to that, that you have a job," and Zig just lined out everything to be grateful for, and that young man was able to basically perk himself up, and I think, I really believe that when you can land in on gratitude in those situations and start to look for something to be grateful for, it's awful hard to stay in anger if you start looking for things to be grateful for. And that's what I try to do. I try to look for how I can be grateful and what's really going on here and how I want to respond. But I have to catch it before that fuse is lit. So I really, really appreciate the topics we talk about here, Coach Les. It just gives me a moment to, I think so often we just need to keep, as we say here on Clubhouse, in the room at times, to refresh and remember. We can't hear it often enough. So I'm going to give you back the mic, Coach Les, and hear what everybody else has to share about this topic.
Well, awesome, Wade. Thank you very much. And one of the things that I've been did yesterday, and one of the things I'm attempting to do today is to look at tying some of the things between Zig Ziglar, myself, and Simon Sinek, who wrote the book Start With Why. And yesterday I spoke of how with clarity, discipline, and consistency, what is the clarity of your why and how does it impact you every day and setting goals and your motivations and responding versus reacting, planning your day. And you are where you are because you want to be there. And the stairway to success. And as I was listening and looking at these stories about the attitude and whose cat are you kicking, I read the next part, which I was planning to read today anyway, with a different start to it. And I thought, oh, this is perfect, because going from the clarity of why to the discipline of how we live our lives. And it so falls in alignment with how we react. How's our attitude and whose cat are you kicking? So I want to share this. It's about 3 paragraphs from Simon Sinek's Clarity, Discipline, and Consistency, and the discipline of how. Once you know why you do what you do, the question is, how will you do it? How are your values or principles that guide how to bring your cause to life? How we do things manifests in the systems and processes within an organization and the culture. Understanding how you do things, and more importantly, having the discipline to hold the organization and all its employees accountable to those guiding principles, enhances an organization's ability to work to its natural strengths. Understanding how gives greater ability, for example, to hire people or find partners who will naturally thrive when working with you. Ironically, the most important question with the most elusive answer, why do you do what you do, is actually quite simple and efficient to discover. It's the discipline to never veer from your cause, to hold yourself accountable to how you do things. That's the hardest part. How do we show up every day? How do we react? How is our attitude? Making it even more difficult for ourselves. We remind ourselves of our values by writing them on the wall as nouns: integrity, honesty, innovation, communication, responsibility, attitude, for example. But nouns are not actionable. They are things. You can't build systems or develop incentives around those things. It's nearly impossible to hold people accountable to nouns. A little more innovation today, if you would please, Bob. And if you have to write honesty on your wall to remind you to do it, then you probably have bigger problems anyway. For values or guiding principles to be truly effective, they have to be verbs. It's not integrity. It's always do the right thing. It's not innovation. It's look at the problem from a different angle. It's not attitude. It's having great customer service gratitude. Articulating our values as verbs gives us a clear idea. We have a clear idea of how to act in any situation. We can hold each other accountable to measure them or even build incentives around them. Telling people to have integrity doesn't guarantee that their decisions will always keep customers or clients' best interests in mind. Telling them to always do the right thing and have a great gratitude attitude does. I wonder, what values does Samsung, one of the most powerful companies in Japan, have written on the wall when they developed a rebate that wasn't applicable to people living in apartment buildings? Long-term success, the inherent nature of doing things for the long term, often includes investments or short-term costs. This is the reason the discipline to stay focused on the why and remain true to your values matters so much. Why we're doing the things we're doing is absolutely critical and powerful. And with that, what I saw in this is, and listening to Zig, listening to the whose cat are you kicking, is why do we take out our attitude on the nearest quote unquote victim? What is another strategy that we could create? What is another way with integrity, with communication, that we could actually create a space for us to get beyond kicking the cat? And that's what I want us to think about today. That's what I want us to share about and take a look at. And before we go to asking the people in the audience again to share what they see as a possibility, I want to say thank you to mancavepodcasting.com. This is where they host this podcast and videocast on Clubhouse. And if you are someone that has ever thought about starting your own podcast, I encourage you to check in with mancavepodcasting.com. Reach out to them online. Reach out to Steve Appel and check in. And it is seamless. He does all you have to do is show up with your voice and your knowledge, and he and his engineers will do the rest and set you up on a podcast. And I just want to thank him for that. He got me up and running for the first few months and was absolutely wonderful. And now here I am streaming live to 8 different locations and on Clubhouse, and absolutely love making a difference every week. And for those of you that are looking to hear some more, on Wednesdays at 4:30 Central Standard, I do another one of these where I have a teammate, Sujata, who steps into the ring with me. And we pick, on Wednesday, we talk about Against All Odds, the book that she's written, and use examples from the book to talk about everyday situations. And then on Friday evening at 9:30 Central Standard Time, we do another one on everyday topics. So would love to have you come and visit us at either of those times as well. And thank you for being here today. And with that, for me, I think Wade said it the best in his share earlier. There's 2 things. He spoke about gratitude. There's actually 3. I'm going to throw another 2 things: gratitude, love, and grace. And I find that when this morning I was in a conversation where we looked at grace versus force. And it was such a powerful discussion because I realized sometimes how I am so focused, so driven that I forget to give grace to myself and others around me as I'm moving forward, especially when there's a breakdown, and I freight train right through it. And I can see in this conversation that I'm clearly not bringing gratitude, love, and grace into that. So that's one of the things that I'm getting out of the conversation and out of whose cat are you kidding? Whose cat are you kicking from Zig Ziglar? And with that, I'd love to pass the microphone to Brother Joey.
Thanks, Coach. I think when you were asking the question and listening to the different shares, what can we do? I think something that I learned by listening to other people and kind of share kind of what I've learned over the last couple of years as others shared with me is when those moments are kind of invading our lives or taking over, those moments when, like, to go back to the I don't know if he was the CEO, like Mr. Biggs, I think his name was, or B or something like that. His initial mindset, feelings, where he was in his emotions, what was, the fact that he got the ticket, or, and so on and so forth. I think what I've realized is just to be so self-aware, and whenever I feel that those moments of, whatever you want to call it, blood boiling, blood pressure rising, attacking, anxiety, frustration, I think we are to be self-aware and live in that moment and realize that that's what's happening to us. And then in our minds and in our heart, or wherever you want to call it, seize that moment and deal with that moment right then and there. Like, whenever you feel yourself getting in that moment, know that you just need to stop it and capture, deal with it within yourself. This way, when you move on to the next person, it's not going to be something that comes out where you lash out on that other person. So I think some people call it notice your triggers. Be so self-aware that you notice what kind of gets you going, and be able to identify those and identify it immediately. Realize that these are the things that kind of get you, and that could put you in a terrible position, and conquer it before you lash out on someone else. So I think that those are the steps that I've learned over the last couple of years.
Thank you so much, Joey. Appreciate that share and appreciate you. Sujata, you ready to jump in?
I'm thinking this is not the best time for my brain to be working. So I think I'll just listen.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to jump over to Wade and say, so one of the ways for you, how do you deal with this conversation of kicking the cat? Wade?
One of the ways I really try to avoid it is I try to, I like what Joey said, Coach Joey, about being self-aware. And I think what falls in alongside of self-aware is trying as best we can to take care of ourselves. Meaning, if I'm not getting enough rest, if I'm not doing everything I need And I'm pretty sure from what I've heard, Coach Les, that we're very similar. We have that D. I want to get it done, just like that freight train. And it was very hard for me. I remember when I entered the trucking industry, the trainer I had cautioned me about getting enough rest. Make sure you rest. Make sure you rest. And because I was in the military and they'd said in there, I didn't hear it. Yes, it's what they said, but I didn't hear all the facts about it. A human body can exist on 4 hours of sleep a day and be somewhat alert, but you're not going to function at its best. And so somewhere in that, I decided that, hey, if I get 4 hours of sleep every day, you know, I could really, because I was paid how many miles I drove a day. And what I found out was through the hard way, you go, but at some point you're going to be stopped. And you're quite the miserable person the whole time you're through all that drive. And you don't accomplish as much as you think you are, because our mind and our body can't function at its best when it's operating at a deficit. You know, and getting enough movement. You probably know where I'm going, Coach Les, but we talk about the 7 spokes of life, you know, and it just falls into, you know, we have to be working on ourselves. We have to do some self-development so we can become self-aware and ask the reflective questions. I really like where you brought out about grace, because grace is that undeserved merit, that when I do something for somebody, that I treat them with respect and dignity, even though they don't really deserve to be treated that way. And that takes a lot of work. When I was younger, before I really got into the growth and the self-development, what got to me when I would hear people talk about things like that, I think, I don't want to be nobody's doormat. That sounds like a good highway straight to a doormat. And I didn't realize I wasn't mature enough. I don't think I listened well enough was probably a lot of the problem. But no, I haven't become a doormat. I can respond. And the way I stay out of the doormat thing winds back to what Simon Sinek was talking about, that those action verbs. Okay, so now I set boundaries where I limit my access to certain things and people and my input, and I'm really careful, right? Because I value my time. I value, as I look around at God's creation, every human being, and everybody's trying to go through this life for the most part, and I think do the best they can. And just some people have not had the opportunities, or I really believe with me that God opened my eyes. And, you know, as the scriptures do talk about it, he prunes us. And it's through a lot of years of pruning that you get to hear the Wade today that, you know, can admit his wrong, can look back at his life experiences and share it with others, hoping that when you hear that, you don't have to go down the same path, or you can tell that same story, just like Zig said. You know, you can instead of a kick in the cat story, you can tell a Wade story, you know, and relate to other people. I am just so thankful for technology and the opportunities we have today. For me to be able to, you know, be on Les's Coach Les's stage today and speak and hear Sajid, who's just getting up in the morning in a whole other country. I kind of chuckled. One time I coached somebody in India, and I often said I was talking into the future because they were in the next day, jokingly. The thing about it is it's well worth it. I will tell anybody I wouldn't spend my time learning more, developing myself, working in my planner, visualizing my day if I wasn't reaping, getting the ROI out in the life I wanted. Because I could always go back to the old way. This is, to me, life's an experiment. And I wish everyone to go out and experiment today and find what works for you the best way so you can be the best version of yourselves. So back to Coach Les.
Thank you so much, Brother Wade. I appreciate that. And I see Sue's joined us on stage. Awesome, Sue. How are you this afternoon, this evening, this morning, wherever you are?
This afternoon, I'm doing great. Hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me, Coach. I just wanted to express my gratitude for all the thought-provoking topics I hear when I'm in your room. And for me today, specifically, grace for specifically something for me that I need to handle with that. So hopefully I won't kick the cat. I'll just kind of give myself a nudge in the right direction. So I will turn it back to you. Thank you.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. And I see some other people have come up. And the question today is, and the discussion we're talking about is, whose cat are you kicking? And we listened to a little conversation with Zig Ziglar, and we read a couple of paragraphs from Simon Sinek's Start With Why, and he spoke about clarifying how the discipline of how will you do your life, your job, your mission, your business is specifically what he's talking to. But for me, it plays a part in family. It plays a part in your faith. It plays a part in your business as well. So it's a full rounded thing. So with that, I want to pass the question to Fionn. Welcome, Fionn. Would love to hear your thoughts on, whose cat are you kicking when you get upset? And what are the ways that you can see to shift that perspective on that upset? If you'd like to share with us, Fionn. And she may not be available. Sometimes she just comes up to listen, which is awesome. Thank you for being here. I'll pass the mic over to Lois. Good afternoon, Lois. How are you?
Oh my goodness. I'm so glad I'm finally able to make it in a room with you and Sujata together. Yay!
Hi, Lois.
Hi, you guys. I'm so glad to be able to pop in here. I usually miss it because isn't this usually on Wednesday? Don't I see you two together on a Wednesday?
Yes, we do a Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. Central.
Aha. That's my family time. That's my family. We do a family story hour and poems and sound healing. So that's why I can never make it in. When I saw the two of you in here, I was like, oh my goodness, let me pop in. I have a few minutes. Who do I kick? What cat do I kick? I guess I would have to say my poor husband is the one who gets it when I'm feeling out of sorts, or I'm feeling, edgy or pissy or something like that. And a lot of times I'm so grateful because he's so patient with me, and oftentimes it'll just take a look at me and say, your tone or something like that. And I really have to reflect because I do have a very sharp tone sometimes. And it's something that I have to work on. I recognize that about myself. I've done it to people. I've done it to coworkers. I've done it to family members. And it's something that I got to work on. That being said, I do feel like if you have a mindset that you remind yourself, like I do every day, because there's so many things that pop into my head that I like to worry about. I try to keep those 4 words and use a mindfulness tool to remind myself to relax, let go, trust, and surrender. And those are the 4 words that sometimes pull me out of my, for lack of a better term, pissiness. Was that the question, or did I get it completely wrong?
Nope, you got it. It was perfect. In fact, I'm stealing the way you asked the question because the question has gotten a little bit complex. Mixing Zig Ziglar, Coach Les, and Simon Sinek into the equation, and I think you did a beautiful job. And I chuckle because what you said about your husband, I'm looking at my wife right below you, Lois, and my poor wife puts up with my pathetic attitude.
Oh, Kristen, I feel bad for you. But you know what? I bet you Kristen has a few times where she's been a little pissy with you too.
We definitely have come to a place where we give each other gratitude, love, and grace. And that's one of the things for me as we wrap up this 1 hour podcast / video cast. What I want to leave all of you listeners with, and those of you that have come online and listened online and said hello online, is really when you look at the circumstances that quote unquote hit you or show up for you to step into, i.e. the poop of life, I would like to invite you to see a new way to react and respond. Now, by the way, I'm taking this on as well. This is not just something I'm sitting here from some magical stage going, this is what you want to do. I'm actually going to jump into the fray and take this on as well. And that is to give ourselves grace and look in the moment when it happens. What is the training and development opportunity that we're dealing with? What is the opportunity in that moment? What can we be grateful for? Many times when we step in the poop, our attitude goes crazy. In that moment, to be able to look and go, what am I grateful for? And to alter our mindset in that moment and to give ourselves grace and to love ourselves and to love the people in the world around us. And I promise you, I've started this. I am still what I would call a neophyte in doing this and in being this way. But if you look in my, and I say but with exclamation marks, with quotation marks, if you look in my car on the dash of my car, you will see the word gratitude facing outside on the one right above the steering wheel, and the one in the passenger seat laminated and velcroed to the dash. It says gratitude. And I can tell you, since putting that there are many times that I catch myself looking at that in the heat of a frustrating moment and remembering, in this moment, how can I be grateful? In this moment, what grace can I give to myself which then in turn will allow me to give grace to others. That's my opening for you as we close this afternoon. And I want to thank Fionn. I want to thank Sue and Wade and Sujata and Joey for being on stage today and sharing the stage on Clubhouse, and to Karen Masolia for joining in online. And I want to thank Kristen, and I see Annetta just joined in the listening lounge, and I thank you for coming in, and appreciate any of you that listen to this on the replays. This is Less is More Coaching podcast and videocast. And with that, thank you. Have a blessed day. And I'm going to just play a quick outro song, and I will be back to close the way I always do with Mission Impossible.
Coaching with Les has doubled my practice.
If you have any struggles in your business or your personal life, Les is your guy.
He's logical, he's empathetic, he has passion for helping people, and his ideas are genuinely thoughtful.
So if you're looking for a business coach with integrity, choose Les Hill.